Let us move into two extra sections, this API specs and the traffic audit. Um, these sections, um, they're optional, and I have tagged them as optional primarily because you're not going to get any questions in the um, assessment quiz, and secondarily because they are in the periphery. What do I mean by that? They're not very often used. Um, you can skip them if you do not want to listen to any of these. You can just skip them, move your video slider so you can get the check mark all the way to the end, right? And you're done with them and move to the next, right? But let's start with API specs. And by the way, this section it's only about the API specs, and then we're going to move under traffic audit. And let's see what the heck is API specs. What the heck is an API specification, right? An API specification is a formal document that describes the operations, the API operations, the inputs and the outputs and the underlying types of those inputs and outputs. Okay, this is what an API specification is. Generally speaking, the best practice is to for your developers to create those specifications, right? Or at least your product development departments to create those specs. That's the best practice. Now, whether it's done in practice, that's a different story altogether, and we can have a philosophical discussion about it uh, another time. Okay. Now, if your developers are taking their time to build those specifications, you can take advantage of it. And I mean you, as a no-name security professional, you can take advantage of those specs. And you can upload them in the no-name platform. What do I mean by that? I mean that you can select this button, Upload API Specs, and you can come in here and you can select what type of a specification do you like to upload. And by the way, these are, I don't know, the vast majority of specs is one of these, especially Open API specifications nowadays. Okay, these are used primarily for RESTful APIs. Okay, RESTful APIs. It could be used for other APIs, but primarily for RESTful APIs. So we have Open API specification, RESTful API modeling language, WSDL, web service description languages, which is primarily for SOAP, and WADL, web API description language. I believe the A stands for API. Okay. All of these are there to describe APIs in a formal manner. And again, they describe the API the way your developers have designed it. So it captures the expected behavior. Okay, that's what it captures. And you can upload them. You can upload them. We're not going to do it, but you can come in here. You can drag and drop the file. You can upload them and be done with it. Now, you may be wondering why the heck, what's the purpose of all this? Okay. So if you upload the expected behavior of the APIs, guess what? The no-name platform, by inspecting traffic, ingesting traffic, identifying APIs, is able to detect the actual behavior of your APIs. It's not very rare that the expected behavior of the API as your design envisioned it, as your designers, your developers envisioned it, may deviate from the actual behavior. Right? It's not very rare. It may deviate. So you have the no-name platform now that gives you the ability to compare the expected behavior versus the actual behavior, what the no-name platform has detected. And there is a field, there's a column on this table. If I track it down, it's called API spec. If I enable it and I show you the tooltip, now you will be able to see the result or the values that this particular column expects, right? So the only correct one is the approved, right? That means that the matching specification that you uploaded under your API specs matches the fields that the no-name platform has discovered. So it's a comparison tool. If we see differences, then you're going to get one of those diffs. The API has a matching spec, but some of the fields between the traffic and the spec don't match. Diff sensitive, that means that the differences are on sensitive data types. Diff required, that means that some of the fields are required according to the spec, but they're optional in the actual behavior. Diff requires sensitive, the combination of the previous two. Deprecated, that means that your spec indicates that this API is deprecated. But we keep seeing traffic over and over again. Conflicting, that's the worst of all. That's the worst of everything. You do not want to be in conflicting, right? Because the spec says one thing, your implementation does a totally different thing altogether. Okay? Pending analysis, that means we're still analyzing the API. We're going to give you some results back. No match means there's nothing to report, right? We didn't have a match, which is exactly the value that you see right here, hyphens. Okay, so that's your API specs. And with this, we've concluded the very first of the two optional sections of this course. Okay, section end.